She was the first elected female Prime Minister of New Zealand, but now she's facing a resurgent National Party leading by double digits in the polls. What does Labour need to do to win? Why should it win? And why should she lead this country for another 3 years? My guest tonight is the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Helen Clark. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Ollie.
Rightio, Ollie, I like that. All right, now New Zealanders to me seem to view politics like an egalitarian game of beach cricket. You know, once you've had your 40 balls, you're out, pass the bat to the next person. What is Labour going to do to combat this idea of 3 terms and it's time for a change?
Firstly, I don't think anyone much is focused on the election at the moment, except the politicians and the political media. A long way to go yet. We're at the start of the third year. And as I said in my annual statement to Parliament, we've got to get on with governing. The campaign will come in due course, but if you down your tools now, or your cricket bat, to carry on the analogy, then frankly you'll be squandering a lot of time. We've got a lot of things to do. Time will come for the campaign. Labour will have new policy, and we'll be campaigning strongly.
Whenever Labour tries to pass progressive legislation, repealing Section 59, the prostitute law reform, the civil unions bill, the talkback radio goes wild, and you know we get that reactionary comment of it's Helen Clark, you're trying to create some sort of postmodern atheist pink agenda type thing. How do you combat dog whistle politics like this?
Well, a lot of these bills are actually private members' bills, private members' initiatives. But sure, I'm an unashamed Liberal. I actually think people should be free to live their lives as long as it doesn't hurt anybody else. So I've always put my hand up for a Liberal cause. I remember back to the days of the homosexual law reform bill in the mid-1980s. It was just as hideous as the nonsense we've heard about civil unions and other issues now. I'm afraid that hate element of society is always with us, and you just have to deal with it in the course of political debate.
Is there any part of you that thinks that you've done it too soon, you know, that in order to try and make these policies, which I agree with you, I think they're very important policies to give rights to people, but is there any fear that the New Zealand public weren't ready and it might cost you the next election? There's
always an element that is never ready for people to have their human rights recognised. But if you think around civil unions, at the time that was going through the Kiwi Parliament, the British were legislating for civil partnerships. Catholic Spain actually legislated for gay marriage. There were pieces of legislation like this going right around the Western world, including attempts to do it in the States of the United States of America. So it was an issue whose time had come in New Zealand and other places.
Were you surprised when John Key turned around and helped you get the repeal of Section 59 through?
Well, strictly speaking, no help was required from the National Party because there was sufficient support in Parliament to pass it. But it seemed to me it would be better if it went through with a really big majority. And so I worked with the New Zealand Law Commission on getting wording which clarified what the intent of the bill was, and that enabled all but about 7 of the MPs to come on board with it. And I think that was good for New Zealand children.
Why do you think he did it? I mean, is he trying to go centrist? Is he trying to distance himself from the Don Brash hard right of the past?
Hard to know, because in all the public utterances the National Party is making now, you'd never think they'd voted for the change to Section 59 at all.
Yeah. Why was the term of the unknown warrior so important to you?
To me, because I was aware that other countries who participated in the Great War, the First World War and the Second World War, had long had a term of the unknown warrior. I was aware that, for example, New Zealand RSA had been calling for it since about 1922. And I thought its time had not only come, but actually it was very late in the day to do it. So I set about that as a particular project. I've had a lot of heritage, memorial, cultural projects during my time as Prime Minister and Minister of Arts, Culture and Heritage. And that one I found particularly satisfying because of the way the public really took it to heart.
Yeah, certainly did. You've described New Zealand as conservative with a little c. And yet when outflanking National on policy, you've ended up creating conservative with a capital C responses. The foreshore and seabed legislation, the arguments our affair, the agriculture industry seems to be off the hook with emission caps not in effect till 2004. Why should Liberal or progressive voters support Labour?
Because we're a Liberal and progressive government, of course. I mean, take agricultural emissions. In the European Union, they say, fantastic, we the EU have an emissions trading scheme. Well, it only covers about 30% of the greenhouse gases. They haven't even started to tackle the issue of agriculture. We are tackling it. We're giving them a good time frame because we promised we wouldn't bring them into a trading scheme in the first commitment period under the Kyoto Protocol. But the time has to come for agriculture also to face the consequences of emissions, and that will be 1 January 2013.
But do you have to listen to the will of the public and change tack sometimes? And does that make you less liberal?
Politics is all about judgment, isn't it? It's about what's appropriate to do at the time. Sometimes you might run a little bit ahead of public opinion, but that's also called leadership. And I've never shied away from that. I've felt that if we should be leading on an issue, we need to get out and put our case.
If you get attacked as politically correct, that great term that they use all the time now, but if you get attacked as politically correct by National and you have those dog whistle issues thrown at you and you outflank that attack by taking a conservative angle, how can Liberal or progressive voters rely on you standing your ground?
I'm not really sure of where we've taken a conservative angle. We tried to take a moderate social democratic position, if I could put it that way. But we've been an extremely successful social democratic party, probably one of the most successful in the world in terms of the period of time we've held election over the last 70 years or so. And we've done it by being an authentically Kiwi Labour party. When people think about a lot of the things they like about New Zealand, the things they like are things which Labour governments have put in place.
I promised last week's guest, Dr. Paul Buchanan, that I would ask you about the Tūhoe terror raids. The police said they went to the highest levels for their legal opinion. Wouldn't that be CTAC?
Oh no, CTAC doesn't give legal opinions, and nor do I accept the term Tūhoe terror raids. The truth is that most of the people the police went for arrest warrants on were not Tūhoe at all. So the police got their advice, I understand, from the Crown Solicitor in Auckland, who they worked with. In the end, the Solicitor General decided they shouldn't be prosecuting under a certain act. Some people are facing quite serious charges under the arms legislation. Let's see what happens.
So the police didn't need to go to the government in order to carry out what they thought was the first action of the new terror, the terrorist laws.
Well, the police have operational autonomy, and that's a good thing about New Zealand. I can neither instruct the police to do something or not to do something. We are quite distant from it. They have to form their own judgment on what's appropriate. They work very closely with the Crown Solicitor.
Did they form the right judgment?
Well, time will tell, won't it, when we see what the outcome of the cases are.
In your opinion, do you think that they were a threat?
Well, I think the police had cause for concern because people were obviously exercising in some rather strange things which appeared to the police not to be particularly peaceful in intent.
But do you think they went about it in an over-the-top way?
Well, time will tell. No doubt there'll be the normal investigation by the Police Complaints Authority, which is an independent organisation.
But they surrounded the town. They stopped people. They got on buses. They hauled people over their cars and took photos of them. And was that necessary? Was it that big a threat? It made it seem to us like.
See, they're trying to arrest a number of people, but I think the independent Police Complaints Authority should have a look at it and form a proper judgment. I'm not in a position to do that.
When National and ACT were braying for us to follow America blindly into a war which seemed to be based on lies, you managed to keep us out of the Iraq War, and on behalf of every single person I know, thanks for that. But what are we doing in Afghanistan?
Well, it's a completely different issue. With Afghanistan, the international community has been behind trying to get stability there from the outset, from the end of 2001, post-September 11th. The UN's been very involved, and we've been in there because of that. No one wants to see Afghanistan go completely over the cliff again, because last time it did, it provided a training ground haven for bin Laden and some pretty ghastly stuff. So I'm obviously very aware of what Kiwis do in Afghanistan, and I'm really proud of what
are we doing
Bamiyan province. Well, we do basically the Bamiyan province work. We have a relatively small team, somewhere 100, 120. We do a bit of civil engineering work through the engineers who are there. We support the provincial governor in various ways. We provide a base for New Zealand aid to be put out. We send patrols up into far-flung villages in the months when you can actually travel, just to give the villagers the comfort of knowing there is a bit of a presence around. But it's pretty much a peace-building stance we've got there.
Are the SAS still there?
No, the SAS haven't been there for years. We do say when we commit the SAS, and there's been 3 commitments.
But they're not there anymore?
No, we haven't deployed them there for some time.